In this video, we're going to look at solving absolute value equations. And the particular equation we're going to look at is 3 times the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is equal to 21. Now, before we get started on solving this particular example, let's just kind of review how to solve an absolute value equation. The first step is you want to isolate the absolute value term. You want to get it by itself on one side of the equal sign. So for this particular problem, we want to get the absolute value of 2x minus 1 by itself. And the only thing standing in that way is currently it's being multiplied by 3. So our first step would be to divide by 3 and get the absolute value term by itself. Now once you do that in any general problem, you're going to come up with one of 3 different cases written over here in blue on the right hand side. Either the absolute value term is then going to be equal to a positive number, the absolute value term is going to be equal to 0, or the absolute value term is going to be equal to a negative number. Now if it's the first case where it's equal to a positive number, we're going to then have to set up 2 equations. Because remember, the absolute value is the distance from 0, and if you have the distance from 0 being a particular positive number, then that means we have to take into account the positive and the negative version of that number, because both of those would have that number's magnitude or distance from 0. If we solved for the absolute value term and got case number 2, to where we was equal to 0, again, you could think of it as setting up 2 cases, but really positive 0 and negative 0 are the same thing, so you would just have one equation to solve. You would take away the absolute value bars and set it equal to 0. And then the final case, the number 3, is if you solve for the absolute value term and it's equal to a negative number. If that happens, you're done with the problem and you can go ahead and say there's no solution, because the distance from 0 is what we're talking about when we say the absolute value, and distance has to be a positive quantity. So those are the 3 cases to look for, as you're working out problems like this, and I wanted to kind of go over each of them separately. But now let's talk about solving this problem. 3 times the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is equal to 21. So again, the first step anytime you have an absolute value equation is to get the absolute value term isolated. So right now it's being multiplied by 3, so let's undo that by dividing by 3. Of course, the 3 will cancel on top and bottom, leaving us with the absolute value of 2x minus 1 on the left-hand side, and 21 divided by 3 is going to give us 7 on the right-hand side. So now that we've gotten the absolute value term by itself, we can see which case it is. We have the absolute value of 2x minus 1 being equal to a positive number, positive 7. So now we need to set up 2 equations. So to deal with the absolute value term, or the absolute value bars I should say, we're going to set up the equation 2x minus 1 is equal to positive 7, and 2x minus 1 is equal to negative 7. Because like I said, the distance from 0, there are 2 numbers that have a distance of 7 from 0. That is positive 7 and negative 7. And so now let's go ahead and solve each of these equations, and that will give us our 2 possible solutions. So looking at the first equation, we have 2x minus 1 is equal to positive 7. We're just going to add 1 to both sides. That's going to give us 2x on the left-hand side is equal to 8. And then we're going to divide both sides by 2. Because we still have to isolate the x. Of course, that's just going to leave us with x on the left-hand side. 8 divided by 2 gives us 4 on the right-hand side. So our first solution is x equals 4. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with our second equation. Let's add 1 to both sides. So of course, adding 1 is going to cancel out the negative 1 I should say. We're going to be left with 2x on the left-hand side. Negative 7 plus 1 gives us negative 6. And again, divide by 2. And that's going to leave us with x on the left-hand side. And negative 6 divided by 2 is going to leave us with negative 3 on the right-hand side. So x equals negative 3 is our solution for the negative version of 7. So you can see we ended up with 2 solutions, when x equals 4 and x equals negative 3. And if you get case number 1 where you end up with the absolute value term being a positive number, you should expect to get 2 different answers. Again, you could always go back and plug those answers in the place of x and make sure that they work out. But that's it.